Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're glad to have you back again for another great podcast. You know, this quarter, in the second quarter, we decided to really concentrate on what I call the 6P business owner formula. And if you haven't heard yet, the 6Ps are people, promotion, pricing, productivity, processes, and profit. And today we're going to get in that area of profit. And when I talk about profit, I'm talking about financials. And today I've got a guest that's going to help us in that area. But why don't I introduce Tyler? And Tyler, why don't you share with them, if you would, what problem are you going to help solve for our listeners today?
Yeah, Gary, thanks for having me. I am hoping to solve the problem of the cash flow crunch, even as we're in Q2 here, 2023. The recurring story that I hear all the time for our clients is, Tyler, what happened to the cash? I used to have cash in the checking account and it's not here anymore. And so it's interesting to hear you mention your 6Ps, because I think pricing strategy and profit are kind of connected to what I really want, which is money. I want to have money and get to keep it. And so I hope we can talk about that today.
Well, I love talking about money. So this is going to be a good podcast. So stay tuned with us. Today with us is Tyler Jeffcoat. He's the founder and CEO of Seller Accountant, where he exercises his passion for helping sellers maximize their businesses. Tyler provides financial coaching for sellers totaling more than $100 million per year in e-commerce sales. Tyler also leads the Sellers Roundtable. It's an exclusive mastermind group for 7- and 8-figure sellers. Before funding Seller Accountant, Tyler was the co-founder and managing partner for Care to Continue, a home health care company that grew from 0 to 100 employees in 4 years. Tyler, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Thanks, Gary.
Well, I love talking about profit and financials. And for some business owners, this topic is not their most highly excited topic that they like to talk about. They want profit, but the only thing is they really don't understand their financials. So I think it's so important that we get into this, because with the economy changing, I'm not going to say it's in a recession or anything of that nature, but it is changing. And I think as business owners, we have to look at our businesses different than we've done before. So if we look back, one of my first questions was, what's really changed over the last several years to really make cash flow such a hot topic, you think?
Well, I was thinking about this recently, even talking to my dad, Gary, and as a guy who started my first business, that Care to Continue business you mentioned was 2012. And so now I've started my second business and I've helped our clients. I've never been a CEO in a bear market until kind of right now, whether it's formally a recession or not, who cares? What we know is that the small business owners are feeling pain and they don't know what to do with it. And one of the things that you have to do is to start running your business by the numbers. When things were so kind of frothy and moving quickly. And again, I'm kind of specialized in the e-commerce market, but I've seen this in real estate and some other categories as well. When things are frothy, you don't feel the pressure to tighten up and to understand your profit margins and understand where my money's going. But as soon as you start feeling some pain, and boy, I'm going to say this for us also, like I'm now reviewing my budget way more often as an accounting firm. I'm supposed to be good at this, but you get a couple of good years under your belt and you realize, well, I've been sloppy. And so I think that's what the catchphrase is right now, is that whatever it was, pandemic or otherwise, boosted some industries, including ours in e-commerce. And now there's been a little bit of humility being kind of 1 year away for our industry. And with interest rates continuing to kind of go up, it's requiring us to really view our businesses. The flip side of that, by the way, is that this is an amazing opportunity. I really believe, Gary, that the real wealth transfer, the real wealth generation, generating wealth happens during these markets that are not really easy and greasy and moving fast. Like now is when the CEOs that make good choices are going to carve out, generational impact. When anyone in the world can jump in and get free cash from the feds and go start a business, it's hard to carve out a competitive advantage. But right now, don't despair if things are hard in your industry, because you can actually do it right now in a way you couldn't.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. And I kind of interesting. You said 2012, because I've told a lot of business owners that same thing is really, we've had 10 plus years of pretty darn, I'm not saying everybody's different depending on the pandemic where they sat, but for most industries, it really didn't affect us as much as we all thought it was. And especially with what the feds did with the money that came out that was available. But now it's that time. You really have to look at your operations of your business. And part of that operation side is the big financial part of how do we take a look at that? Because if you don't, you're going to see yourself in a hole real quick, because it's easy to dig that hole. And sometimes, let's be honest, I mean, I know business owners, they tell me that, well, I don't really like to look at my statements and stuff. And I just tell them that becomes a must in your business, because that is going to drive your business forward and become something that you have to do. So let's talk a little bit about that. Is what's some things that small business owners can do to kind of change their view on these financials and really prioritize a healthier cash flow so their business thrives in this versus the other? Because I believe, like you said, this is the time opportunity comes up. I know a business in 2007, 2008, when they took the recession there, they actually took advantage of that. And that's how they grew and gained market share.
Yes. I mean, if you're what you said is great in the sense that if you're feeling pain, then your competitors are probably also feeling pain. And so who is going to be able to step up, find a new angle? We're going to be forced to pivot and change. And one of the most powerful tools, you alluded to it here, Gary, that you and I have to help us know how to change, how to pivot, is our financial data. And so for those of you out there who are not spreadsheet jockeys, you're not in love with looking at your financial statements, I want to encourage you to start viewing it more like storytelling. I want the data around me to tell an accurate story that I have to believe, so that I can make good strategic choices about what to do with my business. And so the first part of that is I've got to make sure my numbers are accurate, right? If my numbers are telling me a false story, and you and I know this, we're entrepreneurs. We know when we can look at our bookkeeping and it's kind of fluff and BS, right? And so here's what we do, because Gary, you and I are optimists. We love building things. We're going to look at those numbers and we're going to say, meh, it's just an accounting error. I don't need to pay attention to that. Nothing needs to change, because that's just noise in the numbers, right? So that's really dangerous. If that's you right now and you don't believe your numbers, then that means you're kind of surrounding yourself with guides that are lying to you, right? I need my accounting to tell me even bad news sometimes, because if it doesn't, I'll give you a concrete example for us. And again, we're an accounting firm. We're supposed to be great at this, but we were just recently reviewing our budget with our partners, and we have a goal for profit. And we were, for the year, we're going to be about 50K short as we currently stand. Good news is we still got a couple of quarters left in this year where we can do something about it, right? And if we'd have just kept running around without being intentional, we'd have got to the end of the year and been like, we're $50,000 lighter than we wanted to be. Dang, we could have made some small adjustments here, some small adjustments there. So I'm getting long-winded, but I just say, see your numbers, make sure they're believable, and then actually take action on them.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's really what a great time, because, we're in second quarter now. So if you haven't looked at first quarter, you kind of just set it up. You've got to get back. I mean, I'd recommend monthly, and then I'd recommend, depending on what type of business you are, at least weekly of what the outflow is and what the inflow is of your business that's there. But what a great time now. If you have not, because most people have done, we know, they just finished up their taxes, and it's like, right, that's over, No, keep on it and stay in that side of it, because every business is different. But I think that's the big key. You need to be looking at that weekly, and then monthly, and then quarterly, really diving in, because then you can change that dial, because otherwise you can't change things if you don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah. And I think every business, whether it's e-commerce or coaching or another industry out there, every business probably has 4 to 6 KPIs or numbers that really give you a clear picture, kind of in summary of how you're doing. And Gary, I completely agree with you. We got to have some kind of a system, because nobody loves doing this every week. But if I can make it easy, the data is easy to get to. I can put on my CFO hat for 20 minutes on a Monday morning and just look at these 5 KPIs. And then to your point, every month when my accounting team finishes my financials, it is not their job. It is my job to make sure that I'm looking at those numbers and know directionally what my company's doing. And then for us, Gary, we kind of do take the quarterly rhythm as a moment to kind of dive deeper. How are we competing with our goals, or, and where we want to head? But I make it bite size, kind of make it gamify it, where it's like, I can do this for 20 minutes a week. And I guarantee you, by the way, if you're not doing this at all, 20 minutes a week of CFO hat on, you're going to find massive results for your business.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things I would throw in there with you with that CFO to say, go back and look at all your subscription services. Because I'm telling you, now businesses have realized, and I understand that, I'm in business, I like recurring revenue too, is we end up we've just went through this exercise at the end of the first quarter. We went through and looked at all of our subscription services and said, are we using these or not? And things that we have set up recurring that's there. And it's great to have that recurring, but of course there's a reason we like recurring. You kind of tend to forget about it. And it just goes on to the bottom line on the expense sheet instead of knowing, are you using it or not? And asking your staff. I had one of my staff members that we bought it because she was something that she was using. Well, then when we went through the numbers, she was no longer using that, but we were still paying that bill every month.
That's a great point.
Okay, let's go into a little bit about we want to talk about healthier cash flows and really getting into their financials and getting in that part of it. But let's really dive in a little bit, if you don't mind, from your experience, which you've seen strongest businesses that are really strong. What are they doing that really we are missing out here as the entrepreneur that doesn't concentrate on their financials?
So a couple of things that the real winners are doing, and it's easier for me to have the context of my industry, but this works in any industry. Winners are doing what you and I just mentioned, Gary, which is carving out do my, stinking job 20-minute blocks each week. Yeah. I don't have to love it, but this is going to give me such a return on my investment that 20-minute understanding where my numbers are block is mission critical. So that's advice number one. And the guys that are doing that, Gary, when you go to a conference, you've seen this. You and I go to a conference and we talk to someone about their business, and everyone wants to talk about their sales. Well, I did $1 million in sales last year. It gets a little more awkward when you start talking about how much money did you make last year? And it's awkward for 2 reasons. One, because a lot of us didn't make as much money as we wanted to. And 2, most of us don't actually know the answer to that question. We haven't really studied it enough to know. I was talking to a guy that literally just yesterday, Gary, that generates about $6 million a year in revenue for his business. And I was like, okay, but did we make any money last quarter, John? And he's like, Tyler, that's why I'm up in the moment. I really don't know whether I made money. And so I think you asked the question, what are the winners doing? They are investing a little bit of energy and system around understanding how they're performing. And then there's some more technical things you can do, but I think the second piece of advice I'll give you really quickly is don't ignore that third statement. It's called the statement of cash flows. So almost every business owners, almost all of us have heard of a profit and loss statement. Most of us have heard of a balance sheet. Maybe we've never looked at it, but we've heard of it. Yeah. But that third kind of, black sheep of the family, that statement of cash flows is the most interesting, for our clients at least, storytelling tool to say, okay, bank balance started at $100,000, ended the quarter at $50,000. How did it happen? Well, it happened because of these activities. And so do yourself a favor and learn the bare minimum of how to manage a cash flow statement and build that into that weekly rhythm.
Yeah, and there's plenty of tools out there. If you're uncomfortable with this, a lot of the small business development centers have classes on finances. And it's not like you have to be the expert like Tyler is, but you have to understand it, because let's be honest, one thing I found out is, Tyler, a lot of times accountants, their big job is to report back the numbers. And I know you do it differently, that you really get in there with them and help them, coach them through it. But let's admit, a lot of people, all they do is tell you, here's the numbers. You owe X amount in taxes this year. And they don't even get into the different statements. They're all in there, but they don't talk about them, and they're not about educators. So that's the other thing, is find yourself those sources, or find yourself a coach that can do those type of things. I guess one of the questions I have for you, Tyler, is I'm just curious, you were running a business and now you kind of totally switch gears. What made that passion switch and change? Or was you kind of the finance person when you started that business and you kind of knew the numbers there, and then kind of that conversion over? Because it seems like now you're really in the thing that you truly enjoy and love, kind of following your passion.
No, so I was in grad school, Gary, and was a corporate manager for a big bank, and realized I wasn't a corporate guy. And two things happened in the same week, and they were both God things, to be honest with you. But one is that I had an opportunity from an investor to join a mission to help Alzheimer's care patients. And two, I'm not kidding, literally within that same month, had a grandparent really have a bad experience in a nursing home in another state. And it just hacked me off, to be honest with you, Gary. And so I think having that opportunity to join that startup team and build a company from the ground floor, we literally got a focus group of target customers, obviously before they were in the throes of Alzheimer's, and just said, hey guys, what's the pain here? What can we do to help you? And so I'm really grateful for the mission that I had for those 4.5 years of trying to drive better care, better training, better staffing for the home healthcare model. But boy, is that a tough lifestyle business model, Gary. It's 24/7, 365 with, at one point, I think we had 120 employees on the staff. And so when I had the opportunity to, and I was also the minority guy, so grateful for my partner who was really the money. I mean, I was a 29-year-old grad student when we started that company. He had no business giving me money to start that business. He shouldn't have, and I'm grateful he did. And so we got to a point where I could sell my interest, make a little bit of money, and go build something for myself. And it was a really good pivot for my family, because I was a more present dad and husband in a business that was a little bit more. The problem with healthcare is I'm not a doctor. I wasn't qualified to do anything except lead. And that leadership was a 24/7 thing. So that's the short story. I also realized that during that journey that I really loved coaching the families through the difficult financial decisions that they had. And the other thing that was interesting is during my 100 days, call it my lame duck session, right? We transitioned to the new CEO, but from contract standpoint, I got to hang around. I was kind of relegated to bookkeeper for that last 3 months or so. And I'm like, I'm an accountant, worked at a bank. I wish I'd have kept a closer eye on this stuff during that year where we hired 50 people in a year. I wish I'd have been looking at this balance sheet more. And so kind of reminded me how important the financials were. And so when we were kind of thinking and praying about what to do next, my wife, who's amazing, was like, bro, let's not go to a big city. I love you. I'll follow you. I don't want to go to Atlanta. I don't want to go to Chicago. I don't want to go to New York. I'm like, all right, well, baby, that means it's time to start another business. And so we just were kind of looking for opportunities. I'm an accountant by trade with a finance-focused MBA, and I love e-commerce because I had been an eBay seller back in the day when I was in college. And so just kind of fell into this niche, and I couldn't be happier. It's been great.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I always know there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
We are listening to the Small Business Answer Man podcast. We'll be right back. Are you tired of spending countless hours and resources on recruitment and hiring, only to end up with candidates who are not the right fit for your organization? Our upcoming live 2-hour masterclass is designed to teach you the skills and techniques necessary to attract top talent, conduct effective behavior interviews, onboard new employees seamlessly, and retain your best employees. The average cost of a bad hire is $25,000. Imagine having our proven system in place that gives you all the tools you need to ensure your organization continues to thrive. You'll get over 600 behavior-based interview questions, customized response templates, employee referral templates, and much, much more. Don't waste another moment struggling to find the right candidate for your organization. Enroll in our Success in Hiring live masterclass today and take the first step towards building a talented and high-performing team. Don't miss out. This virtual event is happening on June 22nd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time. Go to successinhiring.com to register now or check it out on smallbusinessanswerman.biz. And now back to the show. Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that story, Tyler. Tyler, share with us, you're really in the e-commerce space, but I know financials don't change by that side of it. But what's some things that you've seen in the e-commerce space that really applies to any business across? I know financials do, but, even I want you to kind of step out of that, what you've seen, of companies that are doing it right, because I think sometimes in small businesses, we forget that e-commerce means also, like, for your website, if you don't have a presence, there's still people that don't have Google, they're like named out on their company and stuff. And when people are looking things up, they're no longer looking it up in any yellow pages. This phone is used all the time. So what's some of your tips that you would share with people kind of from the e-commerce space that really all businesses should consider?
Yeah, it's such a great question, because I think you nailed part of it, which is I have to know who my customer is, and I have to know where she shops. And so on the marketing side of it, I just think there's no better way to start any business than, I mentioned it as kind of part of our focus group for the healthcare company, but do something like that, right? How can I go find her? What does she look like? What are her pain points? Or if it's me, by the way, the easiest products and services to design are the ones that you feel kind of a natural, visceral pain about. Like, for instance, for me, when I sold my first company, I realized how bad we had managed our finances, and I'm supposed to be a sophisticated finance guy. A service that helps create more sophistication for small businesses was a natural pivot for me. I wonder what this could be for any of you guys out there listening, where what really frustrates me is that this product doesn't do this. Well, great. You can now go design it. And so that's the interesting kind of world opening element of e-commerce. The other thing that I've learned here recently, I'll call this a lesson learned, Gary, is the consequences. This is a quote from my friend John, so I want to give him credit, but the consequences of running out of cash are larger than the consequences of stocking out. And here's what I mean by that. It doesn't matter if you're selling an inventory-based product or whether you're like me and I can't sell accounting unless I can hire people to do the work. We all have some kind of a capacity constraint in our operation, but the consequences of running out of cash are that you die. The consequences of me not having enough bookkeepers where I have to tell you, I'm so sorry, Gary, I can't bring you on as a client for another month. That stinks. That's opportunity cost. That doesn't feel good. But those are still not as large as the consequences of running out of cash. And so I think for me, again, this kind of market correction in the middle of 2023 that we're feeling has made me realize how absolutely crucial it is to know where your cash is. And that doesn't matter what business model you're in. So maybe those would be the things I'd mention.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I appreciate you sharing that, because it's from your viewpoint, you're seeing it. And I think that becomes the key. And the other one I would share with entrepreneurs and business owners, because I've been hearing this a lot in what I'm reading right now. I'm reading a lot of books about mindset, and think, give yourself time to think.
Yeah.
Give yourself time to think. We are so busy being busy that we're not thinking. So in this time, we're getting stressed out and we're creating challenges for ourselves, but we're not thinking, how do we solve it? Entrepreneurs and business owners are visionaries and they're problem solvers. And you, as the entrepreneur, are that problem solver, and figure out how you figure out what that problem is. If it's within your business, it's there. If you're not selling a product that you used to sell as easier, then what's the next product to that? What's the gap in the market? And that's kind of what you said there. And I think that's so crucial. So Tyler, it's been great catching up with you and sharing a little bit and really getting into the financials. I know right away, sometimes when people hear, oh gosh, she's going to have a financial podcast, they try to turn it off. I hope our business owners didn't do that, because I really want them to dig in, because right now is your opportunity time. And we both agree to that. It's opportunity time, but you've got to have cash to be able to make that happen and really figure out in your business the challenge there. Now, before I let you go, Tyler, I want to ask you one question that I ask every guest, and it's, what best advice would you give to small business owners?
Gary, best advice. The best advice I ever received. I was finishing grad school. I had just had the opportunity to join that little startup I mentioned. And I went to a professor and I was like, help, Chris, I don't know what I'm doing. And he dragged me into a mastermind group of other men and women who are trying to lead companies. So if I could give you one gift, if you don't have a tribe, Listen, Emily's an amazing partner. I love my wife. Talking to her about whether I'm going to be able to make payroll tomorrow is not always ever going to be an easy conversation. So that's number one, find a tribe, find a mastermind, find a group that you can trust and be transparent with, because it's lonely being an entrepreneur. And number two is, if you want to be excellent, get the right coaching. Like, there's a reason I'm a UGA fan. There's a reason Kirby Smart makes $10 million a year. The best coaches are the most valuable assets in anyone's back pocket. And so make sure you surround yourself with the right coaches.
Great advice. I truly believe in that. And you and I are both in a mastermind group together and stuff. Plus I have my own mastermind group, and find that coach can understand you. Think about it, folks. Everybody has coaches, anybody, sports, we always acknowledge that, but it's everything, because it makes you better. It lets you see your blind spots, and that becomes the real key there for yourself. Now, if you want to check out Tyler, he is selleraccountant.com. We'll have that in show notes that's there. He's also on the social media side, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. We're going to have all those links available for you that you can connect with him. But also, if you're kind of interested in the topic that we talked about in finance, and you need to go a little bit deeper, check out his podcast. It's Return on Podcast with Tyler Jeffcoat. And Tyler, can you give him a little bit of what you try to do with your podcast?
Our podcast is If You Can Sin at the Intersection. We're on the street corner of economics, strategy, and e-commerce. So if you've ever thought about launching a brand online and want to figure out how to make money or how to invest better, this might be a good show for you.
Great. Well, check out all that information. We'll have that in show notes. And Tyler, I can't thank you enough for joining us on the podcast today.
Gary, you're the man. Thanks, buddy.
Well, I tell you, folks, I always like to give you an action when we leave. The biggest action I'm going to give you is, we talked about one of those 6 Ps a day, that area of profit. Well, if you want the profit at the end of this year, don't wait till the end of this year to find out if you made profit. Read those financial statements. He told us, look at that statement of cash flow really deep. If you don't understand it, get your accountant to explain it. If they won't explain it to you, get you a new accountant. It's just that simple. Get to where you know your numbers, and don't do it at the end of the year. Let's start doing it, looking at our numbers weekly, monthly, and then quarterly, really digging in deep. And then at the end of the year, guess what's going to happen? Your profit number, you're going to really enjoy that number, because you're going to be able to make the changes. You can't steer a plane, doesn't go in a straight direction to its direction. They're correcting all the time. And that's what you get to do with your financials. So come back next week. We'll have another great guest. Thanks for joining us. Make it a great day.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.